Okay, everybody, good morning. It's now 10 o'clock. I'm going to get started. It looks like we have 35 people jumping on so far. If people are late, don't worry. We are recording this, and I will send the recording out or Emily will actually. We'll send this out to everybody afterwards, after it all gets finalized and all that stuff. So welcome to the training. So as I said in the chat box, there is a chat feature. Somebody had trouble finding it. Hopefully everybody could find it. There's an arrow somewhere that you can collapse or expand the chat box feature. It's at the bottom. And if you have questions, we would prefer to keep your lines muted and ask questions on the chat feature. I will try to get as many of the questions as we can, but if not, if we run out of time, I can capture all the questions and I could get back to you. So there's that. So we are just going to get going now, and boom, here we go. So that is me on the Vogue magazine. I end up on that all the time usually, and standing by and lurking in the shadows is our farm to school administrative assistants, AJ and Emily. And normally they're manning the controls, but since we're doing this in the COVID fashion, you're at my mercy, so I'm kind of doing that. I'm doing everything. So, well, hopefully this will work well. So anyway, that's your team. That is us. These are the people you talk to all the time when you ask your questions. And hang on just a second. Okay, so congratulations on receiving an award. You're here because you or somebody in your organization received an email with instructions, an award amount, and general information. And on that email had a couple things. It had this webinar link, and it had a deadline to apply for an advance, which was last Friday. So, and then we also send out a reminder about that to everybody. So that's the main crux of it. But today is the nuts and bolts of how to get into the grant, how to sign up for things, how to do claims, and more. So basically, yeah, here's today's agenda, as it were. So we're doing a housekeeping and overview at first, and then we're going to go over the advance process for those that requested. We had 5 people from the second round that requested it in advance. We're going to talk about the agreement process and insurance. That's very important. And we're going to talk about EGMS, which is Electronic Grant Management System, which is how ODE disperses funds. We're going to talk about costs, allowable and unallowable costs, types, and hang on. There we go. Reimbursement process. We're going to talk about how to do claims and those requirements. We're going to talk about a review process, and that's our process for making sure everybody's in check. And then we're going to go over reporting briefly, and then we'll have a question and answer section. Okay, all materials included this, well, not including, I should have edited this. I'm going to send out the recorded webinar, but I can't post it on our website because we have to make it accessible for the impaired, and that process to do a video takes, I tried doing one once and I gave up after 4 hours. It was so time consuming and I wasn't even halfway done. So we can't post it on our website, but everything else will be included on the website, and it's a bit.ly shortener there. So if you just Oregon Farm to School bit.ly/ORF2S, that's how you get there. That's how you get to our main website. And I think all of you know where the website is because you guys applied for the grant, and that's where we store all of our application materials. So it's probably not news to you, but it looks like this. So when you go there, that is the Oregon Farm to School webpage, and it's a brand new, fresh screen capture from today. So that's what it looks like. And so that's the main splash page. And then right here is the Oregon Farm to School grant. That is our grant webpage. And I also want to show you this Join Us link. I'm going to refer to that later. There's a Join Us newsletter listserv link there. But that is the main page. And then when you click on the grant webpage, here is the grant. On the left side behind this arrow is our procurement grant. That's for reimbursement of Oregon grown and processed food. But we are concerned today about the education side. I've removed, not I, but Emily is our new grant website manager, and she removed all of the application materials. But hang on just a second. Boom. We removed all the application materials now, and now we have all the pertinent resource section things that you guys will need there. So I refer to this a lot. Everything is here that you should possibly need. So that is our grant webpage. Next, hang on just a second. Okay, so we just ask you to keep checking the website for updates as things change, but that link I showed you before, the Join Us link, it's on the grant webpage as well as on the bottom of the opening splash page of our ODE Farm to School webpage. That's a requirement to participate in this grant, because if there's a change, like sometimes we'll have a change in the reporting, or we'll have a change in, like for instance, a couple months ago, we had a change in the claim worksheet. That is our preferred method of communicating to everyone. We will send a blast out on our listserv, say, hey, grantees, there's a little change. You need to be aware. Things like if there's budget cuts, which people have heard about that, and no, we are not proposing that this grant is being affected by any cuts whatsoever, just so you guys know. That is how we communicate. Although there's 1,100 people that have subscribed, which is really awesome, but all the procurement grant folks are on there as well. We don't tend to abuse messages there. You won't get a lot of messages. We just we send out our bi-monthly newsletters that Emily does, and just typical changes and things like that. So that is really important. If you haven't signed up for that, please do. It's a requirement that your organization, somebody does sign up for it, but we encourage as many people as possible to sign up. Okay, also you can email us. We have a Farm to CNP email address here, farmtocnp@ode.state.or.us. Typically, just so you guys know, our email addresses work with either the ODE in or out of there. We have both examples here. So typically both work, although sometimes the system resets itself to choose one or the other, but we usually figure that out right away and get it fixed. But if you send an email to farmtocnp@ode.state.or.us or state.or.us, it'll go. Emily and AJ check those daily, and they inform me as noted. All three of us can access that email file, or you can also email us individually and we'll pass stuff around. That's us. So this grant is for the rest of this school year and all of next school year. All funds have to be spent by June 30th, 2021. That's really important. This is round 2. You guys, some grants are retroactive. For your purposes, it is not, because you got into this late in the game, and it applies to you from the time you have your agreement signed until June 30th, 2021. So that's important to know. So you can't spend and get reimbursed for things that happened last September. That's not how this works. So that's important. So, like I keep hounding on, June 30th, 2021, all funds must be spent and things must be accounted for. And that means, like, if you buy supplies like gardening trowels or equipment for your raised garden or whatever, they have to be received by then. So you can't get reimbursed for something you're not going to get after that date. So that's the cutoff date. And we said, this is an old slide that said July 31st, 2021, we have to have everything done in EGMS. All funds must be processed in EGMS. I'm not really certain about that July 31st date. It might be 30 days after June 30th. Regardless, if we get this done in the summer, shoot for July 31st. Shoot for as early as you can, because we don't want to get into next fall, September, and somebody gives us a claim. We can't do that because the funds actually get liquidated and sent back into the pot, and it's out of our hands. We can't reimburse after too far after June 30th. So try to get things done as much as you can. I know in the nonprofits that can be an issue. So it's just best to do a lot of your programming and figure out your accounting before that, so we don't get too far into August or anything like that, because it gets to be a problem. And it's out of our hands after the money gets liquidated. So shoot for 30 days after June 30th. And the last report, you guys don't have a progress report because you're into this late. It would be silly because there's nothing to report on right now. But you have a final report that will be due next fall, September 30th. So this is a reimbursement grant. 5 of you requested an advance. We had that deadline of last Friday of May 15th. We have to stick to that deadline because the advance triggers a different agreement and it delays the process. So the May 15th was the deadline to do a grant. But for those of you who did request an advance, there's a couple things you need to know. So if you did receive an advance, you have to have the advance justified by this process. There's, I think, 5 or 6 steps. So the first step is you have to, it's kind of like your regular reimbursement claim, which we'll get into later, but you'll save all the documentation, your receipts and invoices associated with the things for your advance. You record all of your purchases like you would on a normal Excel reimbursement claim worksheet, which we'll go over later, but you're going to do this for the advance too. And then you send it to us at Farm to CMP email address along with the worksheet. So you scan your copies. You can snail mail them to us at our address. My address is on all my emails as well as AJ's and Emily's. But it typically works well if you scan everything and send them to us. And so our staff, typically Emily will perform a desk audit on your purchases, and like she'll email you the results if something was wonky. So that's, you have to have your advance justified before you can start doing regular claims. Had a little bit different process for our round 1 guys because our agreements got delayed, but you guys should be right on track though. So we've already gone through a bunch of hiccups with our first round, so they were the guinea pigs. So that is about the advances. Now for the agreement right now is in the process of being sent to you. Some of you folks were, I sent out an email last week that say, hey, if you know you need an advance or you don't, let me know now and we could start that process. So a process is being sent to you by Naomi Rios, who is listening by, I believe, on the email. She's our procurement person that takes charge of this. So she's the one that gets all your information and makes your agreement customized to your situation, your outfit, your different sponsors' information. And so once that is signed and returned to us, and then you're set up EGMS, which we'll talk to in a couple of slides from now. That's our electronic grant management system. And once we know your insurance is in place, and you send in a very, very simple form, an attestation form on our resource section that says you've watched the training video, this video, then you are okay to start, we can start processing reimbursements. So your agreement letter, sign up in EGMS, insurance is in place, your attestation form that says you've watched the training. So about the insurance policy, this is a new thing this biennia for this program. ODE has informed us that we have to have these insurance policies in place. So workers' compensation, commercial general liability, automobile liability insurance, and that's commercial, not simply a personal automobile insurance. And I'll talk about that in a second. Directors, officers, and organization liability, and since you're working with kids, physical abuse and molestation insurance. Now, these aren't in here just to be mean or whatever, but this is required of all folks that are working with kids and doing grants out in the field. Now, people that are the main sponsors that are school districts and Oregon State University are exempt from this because they already have these insurances in place, but for this mostly falls on the shoulders of nonprofits. And luckily, I say luckily, but we had a really hard time with starting this up during the round one of this grant. So the good news for you guys is that people have already gone through this and we found some solutions I'll get to in the next slide. But before I leave this slide, I want to call your attention to the automobile liability insurance. We had a lot of questions about that. It's like, well, I don't do much driving, and I drive to a garden to do teaching once in a while. Can I just use my personal insurance? And the answer to that we got from our Department of Justice is no, because quite honestly, if you get in a wreck, and if you like run into somebody, or you run into and knock over a structure or something, I don't know, whatever, like they first will go after your personal liability insurance, and they could wipe that out very, very quickly. It could be some small amount like $25,000 or $100,000 or whatever. But then they go to the rest, the commercial, and it could go literally in the millions of dollars. I mean, it could go really crazy. So so just a personal insurance is not adequate coverage. That's the word we've got. And then, yeah, if you have contact with kids and you're teaching kids, we have to have the physical abuse and molestation thing. So now the good news is, well, we cannot give legal advice or specific insurance companies or policies. We can't do that legally here at ODE, but we have people that can. So for help, if you go, there's a document on our grant webpage called Insurance Resources Document. And if you go there, that has some items on there, but it has a link to the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network. They have stepped up and kind of gone through, they polled all the first round grantees and asked them what they did for policies. Initially, people were getting really astronomical, outrageous quotes, but some of our grantees got reasonable quotes. And so our network kind of polled everybody, found those reasonable quotes, and kind of went as a go-between. And so they can give advice on, try these people or don't try these people, but we're kind of out of the loop on that. We have to be. So Melina Barker is the person that takes charge of that. Some of you might know her, but their email address is on the resource grant insurance resources document on the grant webpage. So go there for more help for those that need it. Okay, so EGMS, like I said, the electronic grant management system. In order to get your funds, you have to be in that system. There's an EGMS packet available on our website, on our resources section. There are some forms to fill out to return to us. Please be patient with this process to get signed up. EGMS is a very antiquated system. It's a Windows, looks like Windows 3.1. I think it's a Windows 95 system. It's very old and it's clunky, but it works. It does work. So, but there are a number of behind the scene things that happen in order to build that system. It doesn't happen overnight. We can't upload mass amounts of data. When we did the procurement grant, we had to put 400 different sponsors in there, and we had to do one by one. We have to put in all of the names of the fiscal, the project manager, the project director, whatever, and all their email addresses. It's a long, tedious process. So just be patient with us while we build that. The good news is there's not a big number of you guys to put in there. And also, you may receive automated emails generated by EGMS. Typically towards the end of the grant period, EGMS generates these emails and they confuse people because they may have different dates than what I just shared. So EGMS does generate some random emails and it causes some problems. So just know that. But you can always ask us an email if you get something wonky. But yeah, because the law for this grant stipulates that the grant funds have to be used during the school year, we have to establish different dates than our system has. I thought there was something, I'm sorry, I added a slide, but I don't think I saved it in there. So there's also, some of you people might be already in the system, but we might need to update your system. Hang on, AJ, I'm going to unmute you. Could you talk about that too, about the things? I thought I updated the slide to include what you told me this morning, but I think I forgot. So if you're there, can you chime in on EGMS?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was saying that you may be in EGMS from a long time ago, from a grant, previously, but your information may not be up to date. So if you're in EGMS now and working with EGMS with a different grant or a farm to school grant already, then you're fine. But if you're going to want to check to make sure that everything's up to date, because that can slow things down.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so back to the show. Okay, allowable and unallowable costs. We get a lot of questions on these, probably one of the most asked questions when you guys are moving forward. And it can get a little confusing, but just know that at least 75% of your award has to be related to your food, ag, or garden, farm-based educational activities. So actually doing them, so implementing, or, that means planning. 75% has to be directed from planning, implementing, whatever you're doing in your activities. But 25% can be used for other things that aren't directly related to your grant. And that's usually like overhead, indirect costs like conference fees and things like that. So you don't have to do a 75-20. You can do 100% all for, what is, implementing and planning your grant. But you can, some people like to put some indirect costs. They can be allowed, but we can't go over 25% because the bill and the legislature wants the food or wants the money to go to kids. So they don't want a lot of overheady type things to do that. I know some people, especially OSU, I get like, well, we have a contractual thing that we do 30%. Well, like we can't charge over 25% of indirect costs to the grant. So you can use that wisely, but that's things that aren't directly related to planning or implementing the things on your grant. Are your other costs there. And your budgets should be set up like that, as well as your the claim worksheet I know is now. So it's a little bit more clear now on our claim worksheet. Next slide. For labor, we don't want to like have a full, just like, oh, a full position or just labor, $10,000. We want to see like how many hours, like hourly wage rate plus benefits would be the preferred way to do that. Because if we ask for you to show, we kind of need to see a labor payroll, like if we do a review on you or whatever. So we need to kind of see like hours. That would be great. Equipment, permanent capital equipment isn't allowed. Something that's like plumbed or bolted to the wall, like a sink that's bolted to the wall, or something that has an asset tag that's a permanent thing with like a structure with footing. But things that are movable, like a greenhouse that's movable, you can disassemble and move, or like a sink that's a 3-compartment sink you hook up to a garden hose out into your garden, that's fine. You can move it around. But it's one of the things about our grant and USDA grants, they don't like to fund buildings or capital permanent things. We don't reimburse vehicles either, just because I think back in the day somebody got in a wreck and it was a big mess. You know, that's also capital equipment too. So we don't do vehicles. Questions come up also about food. If you're teaching a food activity about local food, then we can reimburse for that food, but we can't reimburse for meals for you, or just meals to reimburse meals. So, but if you're teaching kids about local food and you're doing a tasting table, then yes, we can reimburse that. So that's really good. What else? Insurance coverage is an allowable cost for this grant. So that's it's necessary to do that. One of the things that's been pointed out to us that if you already have insurance and you do other things, let's say a grantee does $500,000 worth of business and your grant is for $100,000, then you should only charge a fifth of that to this. Does that make sense? So we won't pay for your insurance for everything else that you do, but it should just cover the percentage of this grant that you're doing. So you should work that out. Generally, we got your budgets and we reimburse everything in your budget because your budget has been approved. But sometimes we get a couple curveballs, and we just got one today, as a matter of fact, that didn't really match up the budget. So we will look at everything, and we'll when you submit your claim, and we'll tell you. We will tell you if it's allowable or not. But if you have a question, it would be really good if you ask us first before you went ahead and spent something, because it would be unfortunate if you went ahead and put money out just assuming that it was an allowable cost, and then we pull it out and say, nope, we're not going to refund that, and then you're stuck. So just make sure if you have any questions to send us an email about the cost. Okay, time check, 10:30. Okay, we're doing good. You submitted an Excel budget worksheet and a narrative. If there are major programmatic changes to your budget, you have to revise your budget and send it in to us. So, for instance, in the first round, there was a major curveball because COVID-19. We're not having contact with kids anymore. So people pretty much all shifted their focus. They were doing farm field trips or tasting tables, and they started doing videos and virtual trainings and some of the things that you guys are doing now. So if you're doing a tasting table with strawberries and the strawberry crop fails and you do a tasting table with blueberries, I don't care. That's not a major programmatic change. But if you're doing tasting tables and you don't want to do that anymore, and now you want to do a farm field trip, that's totally different. So it's not a big deal. Just redo your worksheet, send it in to me. I'll look it over, and we will either approve it or we won't, and we'll let you know. But normally it's a fine thing, and we approve it, and then you just go on your merry way, and you just shift how you work your budget. So it's not a big deal. Happens all the time. So for reimbursing, for how you get reimbursed, this is what you do. So you have an Excel worksheet that is the grant claim worksheet. It's on our grant webpage. You put the items in on the worksheet, and I'll go over the worksheet page by page in a bit. You submit the Excel worksheet to us at Farm to CMP email address, like I said. You keep the invoices, receipts on hand. You don't send them to me. This is different than the people that had the claim. Those 5 people that had the advance claim, the advance, we will want to see those right away. But for you guys, it would cause chaos if we got everything every time from you. So keep them on hand. When you send in a claim worksheet to us for a typical period, you'll save copies on hand for if you get a review, which we'll talk about then. Like if you hand in a claim for that period, we'll say, hey, we want to review this period, we want to see this file. But keep them on hand in a file. Don't send them to us. We will look over your claim and let you know if it's okay to put the dollar into EGIMS. So let's say you have a claim for $1,000, a bunch of stuff. You send us the Excel worksheet, everything listed, it totals up to $1,000. We look it over to see if it's allowable. Then we tell you, okay, put the $1,000 in EGIMS. And it's $1 amount. You just simply put it in there. Some of your school districts, they have a business office do this. So don't just put the dollar amount in EGIMS first. And that's probably one of our main thing that happens that's wrong. And for those of you that did it correctly, that's great, but more times than not, it's not correct. And we have to go in and like I say, I think it says on the next slide. Yeah, we have to go in and reject the claim, and it gets really messy. So that's why we make sure everything's allowable first. So don't just put the dollars in EGIMS, and then a lot of times that'll happen. And I'll get a report every morning that says, oh, this grantee put in $1,000 in EGIMS, and I don't have the Excel. I have to go to you guys, go, hey, when I need your Excel spreadsheet, and people go, oh, I didn't know I had to do that. I didn't watch the webinar, even though I got an attestation form that said you did. But that's besides the fact. But that's probably our number one problem we have. So fill out the worksheet, send it to us, then we'll tell you to. We'll send that back the worksheet. It'll have your balance and on the last tab, and like I'll share in a second. But then you go in and do that. Okay. So we suggest submitting monthly claims, and I said retain the backup documentation in a file for that claim. If you don't have any activity, you don't have to, but you have to show adequate progress. And I explained that in another slide. But basically, we just need you to do something or give us a plan of what we have to know what you're doing. You're making some sort of progress with it. Like I said, you keep the copies of invoices to support the claim you're submitting on file, and then you start a new file for the next claim. So remember, Excel claim worksheet is located in the resources section on the grant webpage, and here's what it looks like this year. You'll have an activities examples page to when you start up, and instructions. And it's, I've had a couple people that put their stuff in here and send it to me. This is not you're not supposed to put anything on this first tab. It's for instructions only. But basically, I have some examples here, and so of some labor, some supplies, some things like this. But this, I won't go over this in detail. It's pretty basic, but you can look at your instructions and add things in here. But basically, it has a category of 4 choices: implementation, planning, coordination, or administration. The administration is the, actually, let's scratch that. These are the examples for here of the different categories, but there's 2 categories to put them in. I'll go over this, but these are just examples for everything. Let's just go to the next slide. So the examples, this is the example or the actual tab for the activities that you'd put in. So you put in things for your activities, and like I said here back in the instructions, stop that. Hang on, how did that happen? Hang on, I just clicked on a wrong button. Back up. Okay, yeah. So when you get to this, this is where you put in all your stuff for your activities. The next. Oh man, hang on just a second. All items will roll up to your totals tab. ODE will enter your previous claims to make sure your balance is correct and send the file back to you by email, instructing you to enter the total dollar amount in EGMS. So why did that? I clicked on something and it didn't work. Technical difficulties, hang on. Okay, I missed, I think I might have deleted a tab or something. I had an example of the administration tab. So the administration tab, you go into there, and that's where you put anything that's not directly related to your activities. So your activities, like anything you do with your teaching your kids, your planning, implementing your activities, and then your other tab is your administration tab. If anything that's not directly related to your activities, but you still want to cover, like indirect costs and things. That's basically it. And it rolls over to a totals tab. And it says on there in big letters, don't add anything in this tab yourself. We will do that. We will enter your balance, any of your previous claims, and send it back to you with a message saying enter this dollar amount in EGMS. Okay, I don't know why it's doing this. Okay, next. Okay, all right. Like I said, adequate progress. We had to define this term in our rules. ODE needs to ensure that these funds are spent. If adequate progress isn't being made, grant funds will be taken back and redistributed to other sponsors. So we define adequate progress as at least half of your money is spent halfway through your grant, 3/4 of your money is spent 3/4 of the way through your grant, etc. We had problems with this last biennium. We typically it's Emily and AJ that are communicating with you folks saying, hey, we haven't got any claims from you, we haven't gotten any claims. And in these cases, we either didn't hear back, and we had a lot, some sponsors that we had really good relationships and solid performers in the past year. So we cut them a little bit more slack than we should have. But we had a sponsor that actually folded up shop and went out of business. And so it was just an unfortunate situation. So we had to take the money back. But we need to be able to do that in a timely fashion, so we get the money spent, so we till we get it reallocated to other folks. So we're going to bug you for if we don't see that adequate progress is being made on the grant. We'll be asking for a plan. And sometimes like, oh yeah, we're going to spend it at the end. That doesn't really work too well for this grant because like I said, if it gets too far to the end, if you wait until May of 2021 to start spending everything, and you don't, there's no time to react and to redistribute the funds, which is exactly what happened the last biennium. Where we let it slide too far. So we don't want to let that happen again. So please make sure you're doing something, and we'll be communicating with you if you're not. So, okay, next. So for a review, I've hinted on this, but randomly we will select a percentage of you. I don't know how many that is at this time. It's not associated with other CMP reviews, and the CMP is Child Nutrition Programs. We've put our CMP reviews on hold, so we're putting our grant reviews on hold right now too because of the COVID thing, because everyone is pretty stressed out. But at some point next year, probably in the winter, late fall, we will select a bunch of people. We literally put names in a hat and draw them out. If you're selected, like I said, you'll copy in, you'll save, you're already copying and copying your invoices, but you can scan them or mail them to us, and we'll do the desk audit, like I said. So we have to report back to the legislature. Matter of fact, I'm doing that on Thursday. This happens all the time about our grant. So we have to know how you're doing. And so the best way we know how you're doing is ask you to fill out the final report. And that's due September 30th, 2021, next fall, after the grant ends. But you don't want to kind of wait until the last minute to do it, because so you can go and look and see what the report will look like. It'll be like a Google form survey, but you can print it out now. It's not like in a really pretty, super nice format, but you can print it out now to know what the questions are, so you can keep track of things now. That tends to work really well, so you won't be caught by surprise in September. So we encourage you guys to download it and look at it now. Okay, so yeah, there will be a Google link to take the survey. It'll appear late summer of 2021 next year. So there's a PDF copy, like I said, will be posted on the grant. It's already there, actually, I believe. It should be. Maybe it's the progress report now, but the progress report for the first rounders looks a lot like, almost identical to the final report. I think there might be another question added to that, but you can print it out and refer to it, like I said. Okay. Like I said, our team can help. You can write to us, like I said at the beginning of this, at farm2cmp@ode.state.or.us or state.or.us. And you can reach us all individually, Rick, Amy, Jean, and Emily, right there at state.or.us, like I said. So feel free to do that. And we're at the question time, and I already saw a couple come in, so we can do that. And is the question thing. Okay, so I will just back up. Question. Oh boy, look at all the questions. Hopefully I'll be able to get to all these. Okay, there is a lot of them. There's like a million of them. Okay, so bear with me. Okay, first one I have from down south. Since this year's changed so drastically lately, if we aren't able to use our full funding, will we be penalized for future years' applications? Oh my gosh, don't do that. We won't let you do that. Let's just say something happens and you're not able to use that. We are going to be able to reallocate your funds to other people. But your question, yes and no. If you're communicating with us and it's early enough, hey, no harm, no foul. It's okay. We can do that. What we don't want to have happen is get to June of 2021 and take it back. Then yeah, we're going to say, well, they didn't do too good a job. As long as you're communicating with us and working with us, we're going to be a lot less grumpy about that. And so, as long as you're communicating with us, like in this situation before I was talking about, we were sending emails and not getting anything back. And they were solid in years past. So, like I said, I cut them a little more slack, and I was like, well, they'll figure it out. But they didn't. And there were two sponsors actually we had a really hard time with, and they're not in it anymore. So yeah, I guess they didn't apply, but it can be a problem, but it's less of a problem if you're communicating with us. It's all about communication. And also now, I think before it was just me here, and now AJ and Emily are with me. And so I have a lot more help to contact and people and communicate. So I don't think we're going to let you fail like that. So that's good. Hang on, I'm going to change this screen. Still question time. I'm just giving you some reading. Fireside reading. Okay, is there any room to extend the close out period to 45 days rather than 30 days? For universities, it's a 30-day close is very challenging. I know it's challenging because we've had universities before, so that's why we try to encourage you guys to know that up front and try to get as much done before then. It is what it is. At some point in the summer, the money gets pulled, and then we're unable to reimburse anymore. So it's a pretty hard deadline. It can't be loosey-goosey, and we can't tell the legislator to roll money over. When the biennium is over, the funds get liquidated from all grants. It's just the way it is. So know that ahead of time. Can you cancel the advance? Yeah, you can cancel it. We don't have to do it, but the only problem is if you've gotten an advance, it's already triggered an agreement that says you got one. So there's that. So it probably would happen where it would trigger another agreement, I'm guessing, because you didn't get the advance, and it might take another week or two. The advances don't need to be approved anymore by Department of Justice, but it just places a little bit more work on our procurement department. But you could do that, but it will you might have to wait another week, I'm guessing. So I could let Naomi chat and answer that one too. But yeah, you could cancel. Since I am watching this training, do I still need to fill out the attestation form? Yes, because we need a record that you did it. For whatever it's worth. I mean, like I said, people still go ahead and put money in EGMs like after we tell them not to, even though people forget, but we need a record. We wanted to make this mandatory, and that's how we make it mandatory, is that you say, yes, I watched the training. So yeah, you need to send that in. So Noemi said, all grant agreements have to be sent to the grantees. If you have not received the email, please contact me, noemi.rios@ode.state.or.us, and it's in the chat. You can copy that down there. So Noemi is the one. They should have been sent out. If you haven't received it, please contact her. Go to the chat and find that message and copy that message down. Thank you, Noemi. Kids Unlimited is already an EGMS user. Do we need to do anything, or will this grant be populated into our login? Like AJ said before, you should go into EGMS and make sure all your information is still correct. Okay, but yes, I believe that is correct. You will need to make sure that it's all correct, and so there. Cass, you're all good. There you go. Thank you, AJ. Marlene says, some of the work on construction will not occur during the summer. Wait, some of our work on the construction will occur during the summer months, not during the, yeah, that's fine. This summer is fine if some of your construction is working It's still a school year. The school year actually goes from June 3rd, I'm sorry, July 1 to June 30. That is the year that we say our school year falls in, because some people do summer school and stuff like that. So that's fine. This summer is fine. Next summer is not, because June 30th everything ends. But you can get reimbursed for things that happened this summer. That is fine. If we're closed for the summer, can we still carry out the work later in the summer? Part of our grant, yes, same thing. This summer is fine, next summer is not. So if you have work to do this summer, later on in the summer, July, August, that's great, but not next summer because it ends June 30, 2021. Graham from Cairo says, does the grant agreement have to be signed by the grant manager, or it can be signed by some authorized party? The agreement has to be signed by somebody who can enter into agreements, is always the official word I get from ODE, whoever that is in your organization. Sometimes it's for a school district, it's a superintendent or a business manager. And for nonprofit, I don't know, but whoever can enter into an agreement. Authorized signer, thank you. It always helps to read, there's sometimes an answer right after the question. Okay, fencing. I get a lot of questions for fencing, and I get it. Some schools say like a school garden can't go in our property unless there's a fence. And I don't really get it, because your food comes from a grocery store, and are all the farms, do they have fences around to keep all the animals? And like, I know one of our grantees, Lebanon School District, had a 9-foot fence, and deer were jumping over that 9-foot fence. So if critters want to get in, they're going to get in. And if vandals want to go in, they're going to do their thing too. So, but some school districts require it. That's fine. It's an allowable expense, and typically you can disassemble and move a fence, even if it's in, so there's that. It's one of those things that's kind of a gray area, but I get it. People sometimes it's been a thing. So yeah, it can be an allowable expense, fencing. Deer issues. Yes, we have deer issues everywhere in Oregon. We live in their territory, right? So, do you want a budget? Do you want a budget by actual Excel budget items for the program charges? I'm not sure what that question is. You guys have already sent in budgets to me, and they've all been approved. So I'm not sure about that one. In my grant, I requested a hydroponic package. Yes, from Ag Supply. Can I purchase the same types of hydroponic systems from a local? Yes, of course you can. It doesn't matter if you originally had a quote for somebody else. There's still a hydroponic is a hydroponic system. That's fine. Yeah, you can change your mind and get it from somewhere else, Michelle. That's fine. Okay, would a concrete slab in our garden area to prevent noxious weeds and trees from coming up be considered permanent? We put it in our initial proposal, but wanted to check it first. It's not a building, and it's not a capital equipment. Yeah, that's one thing I would have to make a judgment call, and I just judging on that. I would say yes, that would be fine, but we won't allow like concrete footings and stick built things for a greenhouse. Like I said, that's like a little bit more ambitious, but just a little thing you could do in a wheelbarrow and pour yourself or whatever, that would be fine too. Food as purchase of food as a parent activity, such as purchasing experiments for parents to prepare at home for their children at allowable cost. Only if it was like you're teaching about local food, like local Oregon asparagus. That could be, because the whole point of this grant, I'm thinking globally for the whole education grant, it's to buy food for the procurement grant, local food to give to the kids, and this side of it to teach them about local food. So we don't want to just fund asparagus from California to feed parents. But if you're saying, hey, we want to teach them, like, here's a thing, and here's a little video about Oregon asparagus and how to grow it, and here's some Oregon asparagus, and from a local farmer, then yes, because you're teaching about that local food. But if it's just about regular asparagus, then no. Okay. Where do contract employee costs go in the spreadsheet? If your employees, it depends. If your employees are actually doing work on the activities, teaching, then it would go on the activities tab. If it's contract employees doing administrative tasks, it would go on the administration tab. So I think most people are going to put them on the activities tab for the actual activities, planning activities, or teaching the activities. The final report is currently posted. Thank you, Emily. So yeah, no midway report for you guys, because at the time we're doing the midway report, it would be about the time you guys are getting started. So for us, we just decided to do a final for you guys. But I would encourage you guys to download the final report and see what it looks like now. And like I said, there might be a change in question in the last part of it. But if that happens, we will send that out to you guys as well. Candace has a question. If we're planning to delay some activities from this summer to next spring, is that a big enough chance to require submitting a revised budget? No, it's not. You don't have to send in a revised budget because it's the same thing, same dollar amount. It's just a different time frame. But please just keep us in the loop so we don't start getting into a year from now wondering what happened to everything. So just keep us in the loop and stuff. Yeah. No problem. Yeah. Okay, we're getting down to the end. I got 4 more minutes, a couple more questions here. I'll try to get to them. If we're likely to get to the grant for the next biennium, if we were successful for this biennium, looking at sustainability for the districts, next biennium. Okay, I can't really answer that now because it depends on the quality and quantity received of applications. I will say that I'm kind of glad the question came up because the legislature initially wanted these projects to be sustainable, so we're not just constantly funding the same projects. So we always say if you're going to put in another application for a future grant, that you should change it up a bit and do something new and fresh. That's what we always try to say. But for the round 1, we had 4 different grantees say, I was counting on this grant. It's in my budget. We were counting on it, and if we don't get it, we're gonna, get really mad. So we don't want that to happen, and that kind of makes us question whether we should make it more like the USDA. The USDA for their farm to school grant says if you've had a grant, you're not eligible for 6 years after you've gotten a grant. Now we haven't done that yet. But we've been able to say keep it fresh and don't fund the same thing that you've always done. We might be more of a stickler on that in the future. I'm just saying because we had some issues lately. Yeah, the grant agreement says there's a progress report. Right. Sorry about that. That was a late change. There is not a progress report due on September 30, 2020. I thought that got changed everywhere. There is a final report due September 30th, but there is not a progress report due first. So hopefully that won't have to trigger another agreement. I'll have to talk to Noemi about that. But no, I thought we changed that like a month ago. How soon can we start using funds? I think you can back up a bit, but if you might have come in late, as soon as the agreement is in place, you're in EGIMS, you have the attestation in, and your insurance is, you're a school district Lewis, so you don't need to worry about the insurance. So it's going to be a little sooner for you. Okay, yeah, we can make corrections during the agreement if there's an error. Like it looks like, it sounds like we might have to redo. I don't know how much of a stickler that is going to be for the progress report, because we're not going to need one. I think it would be worse if we wanted to add something to it that you guys don't have. But if we don't want to do something, that's not a big deal in my eye. Okay, everybody, I got through all the questions. If you have more, please email them to me, and we are going to stop this, and I'm going to record it, and we'll send it out to everybody. Thank you very much, and have fun, and good luck with your grant. Appreciate it. Peace out. Bye.